very interesting game. A game with with some history. 1978, the two teams met in a World Cup final. Argentina won 3-1, if memory serves. And in 2014, Argentina beat the Dutch again on penalties in Brazil. Their numbers, this very similar XG, Susu. In terms of the possession, the Argentines have more, at least from their last game. They played Australia. That was to be expected. They took 11 shots inside the box, a long pass proportion of 6%. Passing accuracy in the opponents have 82. And then all the other numbers. If you flip it and look at the Netherlands, and it kind of shows you, well, I won't say how tough the Americans were, but the Americans asked one or two questions. Well, maybe not, but the Dutch gave more of the ball to the Americans. They had 7 shots inside the box. The long pass proportion was 15%. I would have wanted to see what the Americans had, but that's okay.
I believe the Americans was lower.
Of course, they don't play long. Yeah. They like to play through. The Dutch had 11 shots with 6 on target. Out of the 6 on target, they scored 3. And we see what they are about. Ben, your thoughts on the Dutch team?
Yeah.
They are handled by your very good friend, your uncle Louis van Gaal, who's back.
I caught a glimpse of him briefly at the World Cup. They were really enjoying themselves. After that United States game, they were having a lot of fun. And again, this is one of those teams where you'll be wasting your time if you try to analyze them from an individual star power point of view. They always are a team that are to be measured by the sum of their parts, as in terms of what they can do, what they cannot do. And if you look at this Louis van Gaal setup, it's exactly the same way. He looks to build a team that will complement each other. I like what they've done in terms of, again, letting the opponents control games where they think that it's not their strength. Now, if you look at that America game, you look at a guy like Tyler Adams, and you look at Yunus Musa, look at the distance covered by the two of them, balls recovered by the two of them. The two of them are literally top 5 in the competition. Tyler Adams has basically run more than anybody in this World Cup. And so that level of athleticism and engagement is going to make sure that you are not going to be comfortable playing against a team like that. They didn't mind. They just picked out their moments, and they managed to do a lot of damage. My touch point for them is that Argentina are a team that basically ride on how Messi starts a game and how he controls a game. I've been mildly impressed by McAllister. I didn't think he was going to stand out in a tournament like this, but he stood out largely for me. His work rate, his passing efficiency has been really, really great. But again, like I say, it will all be dependent on how Messi leads this team. What kind of energy does he bring into this team early? Can he dictate the tempo of this game? Can he bring their danger men into the mix? The Dutch have weapons from all over the pitch. They have midfielders who can break the lines and pass you vertically. They can go to the wings. They can break down defenders on the wings. They can also actually make things happen from their fullbacks. Look at Denzel Dumfries. I mean, his comfort in cutting back the ball, his comfort in finishing chances himself, especially in this game, has been absolutely brilliant. He finished one of the chances off with his left foot. And so if you are Argentina, that's a bit of a nightmare for you, because now you don't really know who's leading this line based on how the Dutch actually attack. So one moment you have Gakpo to deal with, the other moment you have Berghaus to deal with. There's Memphis Depay, I think, will start that game to deal with. So it's just a team that's very hard to pin down with regards to the type of strengths they come with, the types of, weaknesses they come with. If you are doing video on these guys, they will pull you in all directions, where you basically won't have anything in particular to focus on. I think that will basically be their strength going into a game like this. Again, they have a manager who I think is better than the opponent manager, especially in terms of game management and game control. The one thing I love about Louis van Gaal's game management is the fact that he doesn't get emotional with game management. It doesn't matter if you are playing bad after 30 minutes. He will yank you from the game. And so it's very important. There are coaches who can see a player who is letting their team down and can let it go on for 60, 50 minutes to see if things will change. After 45 minutes, if you're not doing what he wants, he'll take you out of the game. And so I think they will be a lot more pragmatic. Argentina will be a lot more emotional in how they manage this game. And that will be important to how this game is. On the balance of who wins this game or not, I think that it's 50-50, but Messi will tip the advantage in Argentina's advantage, because yes, everything can cancel out. Coaching tactics can cancel out. Players can cancel out. But he has the X factor. He can do anything at any time in the game, and you won't be able to have seen it. So it's just that's just what it is as far as the data are concerned. But I think that if they can get past this Argentina team, I think they can go all the way to the final.
Wow. We'll see how it plays out. So let's look at Argentina now. Ben seems to think that the Dutch have this all-round feel about them, Louis van Gaal and this team. And I kind of understand because we've seen previous Dutch teams where you could pick out star men. They've had teams with Dennis Bergkamp and Patrick Kluivert, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Wesley Sneijder. I don't think this team is like that.
Forgot Iron Robin,
Robin van Persie and others. Let's talk about Argentina and what they have done in this competition. Clearly it is Messi's team. They are letting him play in a position he's very comfortable in, behind the front man or whatever. But when you observe them from game one till now, one, what is the biggest thing you've noticed about them? And two, how can they hurt Holland in this quarterfinal?
Messi is the problem, the solution, the answer, the question. He's everything. Because they play through him. But he's also their biggest tactical weakness.
I see.
Because right now we're in a game where all 10 outfield players press. There's very few outfield players who don't press, who are allowed not to press. And Messi is one of them. But when you have a player who doesn't press, he becomes a tactical problem because teams know that they can play around him very easily. And he doesn't offer anything in transition. So because everything goes through Messi and Messi is also one of their biggest weaknesses on the other side, it makes it very weird because you have to ask yourself, how do we maximize Messi's strengths and hide his weaknesses? And I don't believe Argentina has done either well. I don't believe they've maximized his strengths at all, and I don't believe they've hidden his weaknesses well either. Because as the Saudi Arabia game, the fact he dropped deep, lost the ball, and caused them a goal is what we are talking about. Because Messi, if you play everything through Messi and he loses the ball and he's not going to chase after the ball, it becomes a problem in transition. But he's also winning them a lot of games. But I believe the fact is, at this stage in Messi's career, he shouldn't be having to win every game. In the sense that you want to create a situation where he wins some games, but he's not winning every game. They need more movement in front of him. They need more players who are progressing the ball, running at the defense, so that Messi has a bit more space to operate. Because if he had more space, he'd be even more effective. Right now, it's like Messi gets the ball, and it's like everyone is watching him, waiting for something to happen.
Yep.
It won't work against the Dutch. I believe the Dutch are a bit... They have Louis van Gaal. We said this before. Louis van Gaal is going to drill this team, and they are going to take advantage of those weaknesses. Their reliance on Messi and how often they want to get him the ball.
How Australians were dinking through the defense. Australia.
Because honestly, for me, what I believe will happen is that the Dutch will set a pressing trap around Messi, or they'll deny him the ball. So it's one of two things. When Messi gets the ball, they kind of rush him, so he loses the ball, then they transition. Or the midfielders who are trying to get the ball to him, they don't even let the ball get to him. And the deeper he drops, the less dangerous he becomes. And that's one of the ideal situations. You have Messi picking up the ball in the center circle. Because this is in 2012 or 2010, where he was a young man, sprightly, he could run through the defense at will. We've seen the goals he used to score when he was younger. Even in the last 5-6 years, we've seen some of those goals. But in the last 2-3 years, how often has Messi picked up the ball from central midfield and run at a kind of, compact...
By the way, that's the signature Messi move. When things are not going well, he drops deep into the middle, picks up the ball, asks for a 1-2, makes a run. If he gets on the end of that ball, it's either hitting the bar or it's in the back of the net.
And like I said, if you get him dropping deep and he's not finding space, you can protect yourself. But because back in the day, if Messi got that ball deep, it didn't matter. Because he could, right now, that's part of the reason he's become more of a playmaker. Because he doesn't have that burst to get into the box to score and create his own chances. So that's why he has to rely on his passing. And that's why midfield runners around him will help him a lot. And I can even go back to his last few seasons at Barca. That's why I believe Barcelona failed him. In that they were playing him with Luis Suarez, who also didn't want to run. If you remember that Barca team, the only person who was running was Jordi Alba. So all the Messi used to do all the time, that ball over the top, that ball through always to Jordi Alba, because Jordi Alba was the only person making a run. So if you don't have players running, and that's why the Lautaro Martinez problem is another issue. Because Lautaro Martinez, he has the movement, he has the energy, but his finishing,
I think this World Cup has exposed him because we all thought he was this very clinical finisher. All of a sudden, he's getting sitters and he can't seem to score. That's the problem.
This one, if you've been watching your series, you know of him.
The truth is, when Inter keep winning games, he's typically the man on the score sheet. So it's a little deceptive.
But you see, he scores quite a lot.
Yeah.
But there's also some periods he can go
Where
like 5-6 games, he
won't
won't score.
Yeah.
But because other players are scoring, you really won't notice. That's the thing.
He was really exposed badly in the last game because, again, like I'm saying, I don't think Argentina have faced credible enough opposition. They have not been tested to their tactical limits. They have not been tested to their personal play limits. And the Dutch will do that for you. I mean, I watched that game against Australia, and if Australia had better finishes, we might not even be sitting here talking about Argentina. They had chances that they wasted, even though the Argentines had their own chances. But you just get the sense that with a team that has more quality, the margin for error is just smaller. And so you give away chances like you gave away in that game, and you will get punished.
And I have a friend, he's always talking about how much he loves Lautaro Martinez. I keep telling him, this Lautaro Martinez guy, he's a good player if you want someone who's going to do what Firmino does, kind of link up their play. But if you're looking for someone to score 30 goals a season,
he's not the guy.
He's not the guy.
He's not your guy.
He's a great footballer, so he's great at linking up the play and moving.
He's just not clinical.
The problem is because he's not clinical. And that's why Alvarez has now come into the team. Because I think the coach has realized that if I want goals, Lautaro will give it. But for me, I believe the two of them should start, Lautaro and Alvarez. Because Alvarez can play wide and he'll run off the ball. Yeah. So I believe that's the solution to kind of get the best out of Messi. If it means dropping Di Maria or someone else to make space for those guys who run off the ball and use their energy, it should be done. Because right now, I don't believe they're getting the best out of Messi. If they're kind of playing in front of the defense, pass, very slow, they're not moving the ball fast.
But when we say it that way, are we saying it against the backdrop that I think that you've mentioned that the Dutch would likely drop off and then try and play on the counter?
More like I'm not sure if they would drop off completely because the Dutch, they believe in their ability to match any team on the offense, and so it will be more about picking their moments. They will let Argentina have the ball at certain times, not rush it, and then pick their own moments to have the ball and do with it what they can. What I think will be pivotal, again, McAllister, Rodrigo, De Paul. When Argentina have won games, these two guys have actually been a big part of it, whether it's winning the ball in the middle, circulating the ball to their wings, getting Messi a return pass or whatever it is. The two of them will be very important to how Argentina plays today. And I think that when they've not played well, the team has basically fallen off. When they've played well, Argentina have created chances. Messi has had opportunities to be able to give to Martinez to even miss a couple and then get his own goal in the end. So, again, it's a big game. I don't expect there to be a thumping. It's just going to be a game of really fine margins. It's about who takes the opportunities.
Yeah, I agree with Ben. This is a classic late-stage World Cup game.
Big game.
It's going to be very tense.
What if one team collapses horribly?
It's a big possibility.
And they end up losing 3-0.
It's a big possibility.
But, I mean, we saw Germany and Brazil play a World Cup semi-final, which we all expected that, okay, Neymar is not there, but we expected something from the Brazilians, and the Brazilians didn't show up. It happens sometimes, but when I look at these two teams, I think it's one of these things. I believe the Netherlands have the tactical plan.
Yeah.
They probably have the better coach, and they'll probably have a more interesting game plan. We all know what Argentina are going to do. But the thing is, Argentina's game plan, when it works, you're almost guaranteed you win the game.
Yep.
Because once you put, and that's the thing about these kind of certain players, and Neymar is kind of in that category as well. You play through them, and when it works, you definitely win the game. But the likelihood of it working, because everyone knows what you are going to do, is limited. Because the teams will plan for it.
They'll plan for it. All right, let's have a look at the total data of the Dutch team. Their numbers up from day one up until now. There you have it. They've won 3, drawn 1. They haven't lost a game. Scored 8, conceded 2. The XG 4.0.
And this is what bothers me about the Dutch, the XG and the XG again.
Yeah.
They are not, if that means on balance, their opponents are getting better chances than they are.
That is
and
true.
I mentioned it yesterday that it's Cody Gakpo who has kind of salvaged their tournament. Because if you look at the game against Ecuador, and that's the biggest example, Ecuador played them off the park. They were lucky to get away with their points. The Senegal game was pretty balanced, but again, if not for Mendy's mistake, Gakpo doesn't get that goal. So Gakpo has really come in clutch for them. He didn't really show up against the USA quote unquote, but the group stage was his. He was one of the best players of the group stage for me.
Yep.
And
if not the best player of the group stage.
So when you look at what Cody Gakpo has done for them, that's why he's boosted their XG, and they've scored some of the chances, the goals they've scored, very good finishes, very quality finishes. But that's also what scares me, because that lack of clear-cut chances being created. They are not creating too many clear-cut chances. And again, the other teams are not creating as many clear-cut chances as well, granted. But the other teams are also still creating something against them, which is just shading them. And that's a problem, because some of these, in a tournament, you can get away with it. When you're playing a tournament, your data points don't have to be sustainable. You just have to get the win game on game. But they also point to a pattern that maybe you're not as good as you look despite your progress in the tournament.
Exactly.
And that's what worries me about the Dutch, that for a team that's looking more solid defensively from the goals conceded, the XG is not as solid. And that is one thing that I think the Argentinians can exploit. But again, for me, the Argentinians have been very flat in a lot of their games. And Messi has been bailing them out. They are creating a few more chances, but even the chances they create, the high-quality chances, they don't take. It's Messi who's
they take the chances you don't expect them to take.
Well, let me not say you don't expect them to take, because they are falling to Messi. But statistically, if they are falling to a Dybala, a Di Maria, a Lautaro Martinez, those are not chances.
Those are not chances.
That's the
again, just a quick point before we move it on. I mean, just to highlight on Cody Gakpo a bit, I think that the Argentines need to be worried about him a lot because he's not your typical striker. And so the Dutch can do a lot of interesting things with him. They can stick him out on the left. They can stick him out on the right. They can play him as a number 10. They can play him as a false 9. In that sense, you are really left doing nothing but guesswork going into the game on what they are going to do to a player like that. And so it just imbalances your defense a little. And if you know Argentina, they are not the most cohesive defensive units. Yes, they rely a lot on their ability to finish off games on the offensive end and hope that they don't get as much pressure on the defensive end. But we've seen from that Saudi Arabia game that, again, they don't work very efficiently when they meet a team that is very high intensity and high octane. So I think everything points to a very tasty encounter, if you ask me.
All right, I have to just say this. It's very interesting that we saw we've seen 3 teams in the last 2-3 years who've gone about 30-something games without losing international football. And then when they come to a tournament, it seems like, or when they come to a key stage, it's like everything collapses. Because look at Algeria. They won a great run. They got to the AFCON, went out in the group stage. Argentina won a great run. They lost to Saudi Arabia. They rallied in their subsequent games, but they didn't really excite you. Because even the Mexico game, when we spoke about it, 2-0, those were not chances, but they got their goals. I guess Poland was a better game, but it still didn't. They've really not impressed. So sometimes you wonder how this team won the Copa America, wins 30 games and beats them.
It's perfect what you're talking about. These are like literally 2 teams at the same phase in their growth curve, and so it's just a very nice game to look at. Generally.
All right.